What if women could walk down the street and look every man they encounter straight in the eye and fear nothing and not be made to feel? And not be made to feel that you're on display and to be evaluated by how you sexually titillate them. What if no more women were ever again battered, raped, assaulted, denied the right to control their own bodies? What if people who were different in their sexual orientation or just in the way they went through life, instead of being discriminated against and bullied, were valued for their difference? If that were seen as part of the great diversity of humanity.
Well, hello and welcome to an online celebration of International Women's Day. That was an excerpt from Bob Avakian, the clip "What If" from a dialogue that took place with Cornel West a few years ago. My name is Annie Day. I'm part of the national tour to get organized for an actual revolution, and I'm the director of the Bob Avakian Institute. And I'm here with...
My name's Atlas Winfrey. I'm also a part of the National Revolution Tour, and I'm also a part of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. We're going to be your hosts for today's event. We're going to be celebrating the fight to break all the chains, to unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution, to fight for a stop to the patriarchal degradation, dehumanization, and subjugation of all women everywhere, and oppression based on gender and sexual orientation. Today's a big day. March 8th is an internationalist and revolutionary holiday, and we're going to have this online celebration today. In today's program, we're going to learn about the history of International Women's Day. We're going to talk about what it means to be born a female on this planet, in this world today. We're going to talk about why the oppression of women is so central to the revolution we're making, the most radical revolution in world history. And then we're going to be talking about what we and what you can do about all this. We're going to travel the world together, from South Central LA to Chile to Poland to Iran and Afghanistan. We're actually going to pay some special focus and special attention on the question of what is going on in Iran and Afghanistan. You need to know about the hellish oppression that people are suffering there, but also the heroic resistance of women, of activists, and of other freedom fighters there who are facing brutal repression and mass imprisonment. Today, we're going to hear beautiful music from the revolutionary rock band Outer National. We're going to hear from Shakib Mossadegh, and we're going to hear from the singer Maggie Brown. Music and passion that lifts us up and doesn't tear us down.
I'm so glad to be here with you today, Atlas, and I'm really glad for everyone tuning in. So the heart of our program is going to be words from Bob Avakian from BA. BA is a revolutionary leader who's brought forward a new communism, a framework for human emancipation, which recognizes that the struggle for women's liberation is at the heart of an all-the-way revolution to emancipate all of humanity. This is a big deal. Look, if you want to be free, if you want humanity to be free, then you need to know about, you need to dig into, and you need to follow BA. And we're going to get into why that is more today and the difference that would make in the world right now. So look, we're really sorry we can't gather all in person. I know it's making me crazy, but we can be here together in other ways. And, we're glad you're tuning in online. So just throughout the day here, throughout this program, it'll be a little over an hour, probably 75 minutes. Just imagine that we're all in a room together, okay? That we're all in a room breaking bread, dancing to the music, and together embodying the future that we're fighting to bring into being. Even as we're separated from each other by space, people are tuning in from across the country and even around the world. This program is a declaration and it's an invitation. So for all of those watching, there's a place for you and there's a need for you in this. We want you to share this program. Call your friends right now, let them know it's happening live. Share it on social media. Also follow the RevComs, at the RevComs on social media, follow our YouTube channel, go to revcom.us. Step into this. Be part here today, but also as we go forward, be part of the fight for the dawning of a new day. Oh, and then, so I'm sorry, I'm introducing the next thing. So we're going to start our program here today with a short video that was made by someone from the Revolution Club in New York on the history of International Women's Day.
If you Google International Women's Day, here's what you find. A day for women to get a seat at the table, to get in on this system. But the truth is that International Women's Day is actually a revolutionary holiday. A day to break all the chains that bind women. The chains woven into this oppressive, capitalist, imperialist system. The truth is that International Women's Day came out of the struggle of women garment workers. Around the turn of the century, thousands of women worked in the garment district in New York. Most of these women were immigrants from Europe. They worked in brutal conditions, up to 15 hours a day, and were paid less than $4 a week. They were issued harsh fines for being late, for damaged work, for taking too much time in the toilet. Children also worked long hours, huddled in the corners of the shops. One garment worker recalled,
"We wore cheap clothes, lived in cheap tenements, ate cheap food. There was nothing to look forward to, nothing to expect the next day to be better."
In 1908, women began walkouts and strikes at various factories. Braving arrests and brutal beatings by police, the women, many of them teenagers, continued the walkouts. Middle and upper-class women inspired by the strikers came to give their support and were arrested too. Some of these walkouts reached upwards of 20,000. One garment worker described,
"Thousands upon thousands left the factories from every side, all of them walking down toward Union Square. It was November. The cold winter was just around the corner. We had no fur coats to keep warm, and yet there was the spirit that led us on. I can see the young people, mostly women, walking down and not caring what might happen. I think the spirit of a conqueror led them on. They didn't know what was in store for them, didn't really think of the hunger, cold, loneliness, and what could happen to them. They just didn't care on that particular day. That was their day."
On the anniversary of these demonstrations, March 8th was declared International Women's Day by an international conference of socialists and communists. V.I. Lenin, the great leader of the Bolshevik Party and the Russian Revolution, was among those who voted at this conference to establish this tradition. Since then, it has been celebrated worldwide by those fighting for the liberation of women and the emancipation of humanity. After years of demanding better conditions, the brutality of women was once again dragged out in front of all of society, this time with the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. A fire broke out in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. The unsafe conditions and lack of attention to safety, including the regular practice of locking women inside, caused the fire to spread. Many who had been striking months earlier warned about this fire trap. Women inside were forced to choose between either burning alive or jumping out of the building to their deaths. After the fire, skeletons of women were found, still hunched over their sewing machines. The inhumanity and brutality of the capitalists was dragged out into the light of day for everyone to confront. This oppression and brutal exploitation of women still continues today. It is echoed in the factory fires in Bangladesh, in the streets of El Salvador, in the places around the world where millions of women are abused, beaten, sold, denied the right to control their own bodies. This International Women's Day, we dedicate ourselves to ending this nightmare. revolutionary leader Bob Avakian has said, "You cannot break all the chains except one. You cannot say you want to be free of exploitation and oppression, except you want to keep the oppression of women by men. You can't say you want to liberate humanity, yet keep one half of the people enslaved to the other half." The oppression of women is completely bound up with the division of society into masters and slaves, exploiters and exploited. And the ending of all such conditions is impossible without the complete liberation of women. All this is why women have a tremendous role to play, not only in making revolution, but in making sure there is all the way revolution. The fury of women can and must be fully unleashed as a mighty force for proletarian revolution.
That's the first thing I have to say. You never really learn about this kind of history, the history of women, the history of their struggles against their oppression. And it was just really intense seeing, what people have gone through back then. And then it's like echoes here today. You can see that the oppression of women has gone through really big changes. And yet, nonetheless, here we are, 100 years past the day, that International Women's Day actually became internationally declared. And you can see that here we are still in a situation where this situation has changed, yet women are still enslaved, degraded, oppressed, dehumanized here and all over the world. And learning about the history, what it said there about Lenin being one of the people voting at a part of an international conference of socialists and communists, this is a big part of the history that's covered up about women's liberation and communist revolution. People don't know about this. People are told communism, 1 bazillion people killed. The worst thing that could ever happen to anybody is communism. It's just, it's ridiculous. Women's liberation, people never learn this, that women's liberation is a foundational cornerstone and has always been a foundational cornerstone of the communist revolution. How many people can really tell you, how many people actually know that the revolutionary leader in China, Mao Zedong, actually popularized the slogan, "Women hold up half the sky"? This is what is being buried and hidden from people, and it's buried and hidden for a reason. And so if you're provoked by that, you should learn more about this history. Bob Avakian has done deep work trying to understand and excavate what really happened in that first wave of revolution in the world. And he's actually taken it much further, our understanding of what this all has to do with revolution, so that we can build on what's come before and we could do much better in the future. And so if that's provoked you at all, you should go to RevCom. You should learn about this history. You should see what's on that website there.
Yeah, actually, on the last RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, there were people on the tour who talked about what they kind of learned through the process of discovery of looking into that history. So we invite everyone to be part of that journey with us as well. The other thing I liked in that video was the distinction, the contrast between getting in on and finding a place within this oppressive system instead of being a part of actually fighting to put an end to it. And you can see, in this next clip, we're going to show all the ways in which the oppression of women really is woven into this system for people here and all over the world. So this next clip is a clip from Amina, who's going to be reading a quote from Basics, which is actually sort of the inspiration of our whole program today. It's Basics 110, and it's about what it means to be born female in a world of male domination.
Look at all these beautiful children who are female in the world. And in addition to all the other outrages which I have referred to, in terms of children throughout the slums and shantytowns of the third world, in addition to all the horrors that will be heaped on them, the actual living in garbage and human waste in the hundreds of millions as their fate laid out before them, yes, even before they are born. There is on top of this, for those children who are born female, the horror of everything that this will bring simply because they are female in a world of male domination. And this is true not only in the third world, in modern countries like the US as well. The statistics barely capture it. The millions who will be raped, the millions more who will be routinely demeaned, deceived, degraded, and all too often brutalized by those who are supposed to be their most intimate lovers. The way in which so many women will be shamed, hounded, and harassed if they seek to exercise reproductive rights through abortion, or even birth control. The many who will be forced into prostitution and pornography, and all those who, if they do not have that particular fate, and even if they achieve some success in this new world where supposedly there are no barriers for women, will be surrounded on every side and insulted at every moment by a society and a culture which degrades women on the streets, in the schools and workplaces, in the home, and on a daily basis and in countless ways.
That was Amina from the National Revolution Tour reading Basics 110 from Bob Avakian. And in the background right there, you heard the baritone sax player, Moist Paula Henderson. And that whole scene was actually from a very creative film called Stepping into the Future. And you can see that right here on this YouTube channel. And I just have to say, hearing that quote, the millions that will be raped, just walking through all of this, it's really upsetting as well as deeply infuriating that this is the situation, and it is so needless that people have to go through this. And I also have to say it's very uplifting to be here with everybody that's watching online to celebrate International Women's Day, because we can do so much better than this. There's nothing about this that is set in stone. There's nothing about people that makes them this way. It has everything to do with the kind of world we live in, the system that we live under. And so, look, we need a revolution now. So many people are suffering in this way, and they urgently need us to act. And we don't have infinite amount of time here. We urgently need to act. And in relationship to this, I want to read something everybody has got to read. This is the New Year's statement from Bob Avakian. Here it is. It's called A New Year, the Urgent Need for a Radically New World for the Emancipation of All Humanity. And in it, there's this quote. It's really important. BA says here, the whole question of the position and the role of women in society is more and more acutely posing itself in today's extreme circumstances. This is a powder keg in the US today. It is not conceivable that all this will find any resolution other than in the most radical terms and through extremely violent means. The question yet to be determined is, will it be a radical reactionary or a radical revolutionary resolution? Will it mean the reinforcing of the chains of enslavement or the shattering of the most decisive links in those chains and the opening up of the possibility of realizing the complete elimination of all forms of such enslavement? I'm really struck listening to that quote, thinking about that quote, when he says that it's a powder keg. That means it's an extremely volatile situation. And you're going to get more of a sense through the course of this program today what we mean by that. But we've already kind of seen, what that means, that powder keg, that radical reactionary resolution, living through 4 years of hell, living under Trump and the Pence fascist regime, seeing day after day the crude misogyny, talking about grabbing women by their private parts, all the demeaning, the shirts of the Trump supporters that say Trump that bitch, it's woven all through the last 4 years that we've seen. And then you've got this Christian fascist fundamentalist Mike Pence, who really is someone who's straight out of The Handmaid's Tale. And it says something about where we're at in the world today, where we're at in this country, that the red cloaks from Handmaid's Tale and the bonnets that are worn by the women in that TV show have become an international symbol. In this country, in Europe, in Latin America, it says something about where we're at in this point in history and how sharp things are around this question that people all over the world identify with that television show. And it's so important that right now we actually dig into what's underneath this. What is driving the changes? What's driving this fascism? Where it's coming from? Why is it rising all over the world? In this New Year's statement, BA gets into the whole change situation of women. You know, this isn't the 1950s anymore with Leave It to Beaver, you know, with where the wife stays at home and is a totally dependent homemaker. You know, we're in a modern world where the majority of the workforce is actually made up by women. And you need to figure out what it says in this statement about this. What's underneath? What's driving those changes? You need to find out what it says about how male supremacy cannot be eliminated under this system. You need to find out why. This statement gets deeply into how male supremacy is woven all throughout the fabric of society, and that there's a deep connection between capitalism and the nuclear family. And just to say something about this leadership and why it is so important, Bob Avakian, what he's saying in this statement is, if you don't understand that fundamental reality of the way that capitalism and the nuclear family are tightly woven together, we don't have a shot of ever actually uprooting this oppression. But with that leadership, millions of people can actually be a part of making a revolution and going to work to unweave out of society that oppression of women, and actually getting to a world where we are all equal, where there is no oppression and rape and sexual assault that so many people go through. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I think it's a deep point, actually, when you really think about it. And when you look at the world about how much it really is a powder keg. I mean, you know, from the mass protests for the right to abortion in Chile, in Poland, in Venezuela, in Argentina, you know, the horrors of forced motherhood. It's a fight that goes to the heart of whether women will be treated as sexual objects and breeders or full human beings, enslaved to their, you know, or whether they're going to end up enslaved to their biology. And you also see how millions and billions around the world are straining against this oppression like a chain woven around the whole planet. And right now, I just want to give a special shout out to the women in Myanmar, in Burma, where there's like tremendous heroism in the streets against this military coup that's happening there. It's a complicated political situation. But one of the things we have to do is both unite with that fury, but also recognize our responsibility to link this up with the science and the leadership for the fight for this to go all the way, for the fight for this to actually go all the way to really unleash that fury as a mighty force for revolution. So the question BA poses in this New Year's statement about whether it's going to be a radical reactionary or radical revolutionary resolution, we're part of answering that. You people watching are part of answering that. And it's a challenge that we hope everyone seriously takes to heart. So we want to continue to take you around the world, showing the anger and the determination not to go back. We're going to show 3 videos back to back. First, a little bit of footage yesterday. We went out with a car caravan through South Central LA for International Women's Day, so you're going to see that. Then we're going to show a video about this flash mob poem called El Violador en tu camino, which means the rapist in your path. And first we're going to show that where it started in Latin America, how it was taken up all around the world. And then we're going to show a video from our comrades from Iran in Hamburg, Germany, who applied this poem to their conditions. And they did a protest outside the Iranian embassy.
El حکومت زن ستیز بشنو از خون روی تیر بردگی زن با حجاب و چنگ بردگی زن با نقاب و رنگ فکر زور زن کشی بی عقوبت ترس من تجاوز یا خشونت درک تو مسالاری قاضیه درد من زن آزادی عادیه خانه پدری خونیه کار شریعت پشتیبانیه مسالاری قاضیه ای حکومت زن ستیز بشنو از زخم تبعیض متخاصم شمایی متظاهر شمایی متحجر شمایی متجاوز شمایی ای حکومت دین مدار ای دولت سرمایه‌دار ای فاشیست شمالدار ای قاضی مرزآلار من زندانی تو نیستم قل و زنجیر رو شکستم به خیابان پیوستم با افتخار زن هستم ای حکومت زن ستیز ای مغز تاریک اندیش متخاصم شمایی متظاهر شمایی متحجر شمایی متجاوز شمایی ای حکومت زن ستیز ای فکر نفرت‌انگیز بیا که آسمان نیست نه این تقصیر ما نیست هر جا باشیم یا بریم صدو جواب ما نیست نه 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 به مرزآلاری نه 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 به حجاب اجباری نه 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 به بیمارداری نه 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 به سرمایه‌داری هر زنی که بلند شه توی این مسیر تنها نیست بیایید به خیابان فریاد و خشم و اسیان کنار هم بجنگید ضد سرمایه و دین ای زن انقلابی یک تصمیم نهایی در هر جای جهانی پیش به سوی رهایی پیش به سوی رهایی پیش به سوی رهایی پیش به سوی رهایی
I love those videos. You know, it's really powerful to see the people around the world standing up, to see our comrades in Germany standing up. And I think there's really beautiful lines in their version of El Violador en tu Camino, where they just say, you're the aggressor, you're outmoded. So I want to say a few things before we go on to our next segment to kind of help continue to anchor what we're doing here today and to invite you to step into this. You know, you heard in that last video, the women say, we'll defy your suppression. We're going to shout in fiery rage and revolt against capitalism and theocracy. And I think this is really important for people to get, that it's this system of capitalism, imperialism, that is the source of the endless horrors for the majority of people in this country and all around the world. It is this system that is increasingly threatening the very existence of humanity itself. And here's another thing for people to get, is it's totally needless. This system is outmoded. And we in the Revolution, the RevComs, the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show on the national tour to get organized for an actual revolution, we're actively working for that revolution, to bring down, to overthrow, to completely abolish this whole system as soon as possible, and to replace it with something radically different and much, much better. A new society built on an entirely different foundation. That and nothing less than that is what is actually needed. So that's what we're all about. And the big deal here is that we have the necessary scientific method. We have an actual plan. We have a strategy, and we have the leadership to succeed in all of this. There's no guarantees, but we have a fighting chance to win. So that, but here's a problem, and I want everyone watching to think about this, to take it to heart. There are not enough people that are committed to this yet. So it's what you need to be about too. And anything less, anything else will completely fail to deal with the root of all of the problems or will lead to the actual solution. So given the situation facing humanity, and Atlas, you talked about this earlier, given the situation facing humanity, given the lives of women that we're hearing about here today, the lives of LGBTQ people, the lives of refugees, the lives of those locked into the prisons of this system all around the world, we don't have time to waste. So we need to get busy now working for this revolution. Get busy working for this in an organized way and winning more and more people to do the same. And that's the work with the New Year's statement that you heard Atlas talk about a minute ago. The work to get that out in society, for people to dig into it seriously, to dig into it deeply, to make it a material force, to spread it all around the world. That's something you need to be part of, and we're inviting you to be part of now, actively, urgently, to make this revolution known. And so the other thing that we want people to get here today is that we are followers of Bob Avakian. We're followers of BA, and you need to be a follower of BA too. You know, people think, especially on this question, we're talking about women's liberation, and our whole event today is anchored in the work of, and you're hearing the voice of, Bob Avakian. An old white guy talking about the oppression of women. Yeah, deal with it, okay? Because it's what we need to actually get free, to get free from all of this. Look, BA is providing ongoing leadership for this revolution. He has a whole body of work that contains the scientific method to analyze the problem, to analyze the solution, a strategy for revolution to bring down this system, and the vision and the concrete plan for that radically different and much better society on the road to emancipate all of humanity from every form of exploitation and oppression, and to enable humanity to actually become fit caretakers of the earth. And we really don't have much time to do that. So it's a really big deal what we're talking about here, the work that he's done. Look, he's even written a constitution for a new socialist republic. And I encourage everyone to get deeply into that constitution. You can get it from revcom.us. It maps out concretely what to do starting right after the seizure of power so that we can actually work on building up that whole new emancipating society. If you want an inspiring vision of how society could be organized, then dig into this Constitution. And I know just for myself, I'm rereading it again this week, you also come to recognize and understand even more deeply why nothing less than this kind of total revolution can actually even begin to deal with the monumental problems that are suffocating all of humanity, that on this question and on every question. Look, there's never been a leader like this in this country before. And there's no other leader like this in the world right now. And actually, just to be frank, we can't afford not to follow this leadership if we ever want to get free, if we ever want to put an end to this madness. So that's our challenge, and that's our invitation.
I think that's a perfect
Segue.
introduction, segue to our next clip. This next clip we're going to show from Bob Avakian is called Imagine. And it is, it really does help you actually get your head in that kind of space of really getting outside of just the framework of what is and really thinking about what is possible. So we're going to show you that clip from Bob Avakian, and then we're going to listen to a music video from the revolutionary rock band Outer National. We're going to play their music video for Free Women. And then we're going to go to a video compilation that is giving you a sense of the people who are standing up, the women and the men who are in the streets all across the world, standing up against the oppression of women. And finally, we're going to show you a 6-minute video from the group Ocean Revolt. They're the ones who did that video, El Violador en tu Camino, in Farsi. So we're going to show you this video. Just one word on who Ocean Revolt is. They're the voice of women's rebellion to express the determination and to serve their struggle against the Islamic Republic in Iran and the whole region. So why don't we go ahead and play that series of video now?
Imagine if we had a whole different art and culture. Come on, enough of this bitches and hoes and SWAT teams kicking down doors. Enough of this get low bullshit. And how come it's always the women that have to get low? We already have a situation where the masses of women and the masses of people are pushed down and held down low enough already. It's time for us to get up and get on up. Imagine if we had a society where there were a culture that, yes, was lively and full of creativity and energy and, yes, rhythm and excitement, but at the same time, instead of degrading people, lifted us up. Imagine if it gave us a vision and the reality of what it means to make a whole different society and a whole different kind of world. Imagine if it laid out the problems for people in making this kind of world and challenged them to take up these problems. Imagine if art and culture too, movies, songs, television, everything, challenged people to think critically, to look at things differently, to see things in a different light, but all pointing toward how can we make a better world.
One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm trying to. Beneath the surface where the well is deep and wide. Maybe they gather on the moonlit skies. I know I've seen them on the other side. In that place where no one goes, the bottom of the desert where the scorpions roam. Where did it go? Are they still alive? Have they been burned by the fire tonight. These women and their little girls, messengers of a whole new world.
هو يوم المرأة العالمي، وأحب أوجه رسالة لجميع نساء الأرض بأنه إحنا القوة، إحنا الشجاعة، إحنا نص المجتمع، وإحنا الجزء المكون الآخر إليه، وإحنا ما نقل نهائياً بأي شكل من الأشكال عنه.
Women in Chile are taking a stand against the sexist culture that has seen femicide, sexual abuse, and mistreatment become the norm. During social unrest in 2019, the country became the birthplace of this feminist protest anthem. It became a viral hit, and it was performed around the world. But the feminist protests are not limited to students. On March 8th of 2018, women from all ages and backgrounds participated in a massive feminist general strike and demonstration. It's a gathering that happens every year.
In Latin America, rape and domestic violence are widespread. From Argentina to Colombia to Central America, women marked Women's Day to say enough. Mothers and daughters marched together.
I'm proud and unafraid to be a woman. When my mother was my age, she was abused and could not speak out because it was considered normal.
Chilean women are playing a key role in ongoing social protests that began last October over inequality. And now they're celebrating what they see as a major political victory.
I believe that we are in a generation that is capable of tearing down the patriarchy.
In Buenos Aires, protesters gathered to demand justice for women killed in femicides.
Far from being frightened away, look at what's happening now. Inspired by Movahed, the girls, plural, of Revolution Street are all over social media. One, then another, then more, new pictures almost every day. It's not mass street protests, but single displays of defiance, strength, standing on their own power boxes.
We've only just begun!
In 5 Alabama cities today, outrage, women and men speaking out against the state's new abortion law.
It has, I think, created a spark that we're going to see a political response to, as well as lawsuits and other forms of action.
Protesters especially incensed there's no exception for victims of rape and incest.
In Washington, D.C., a wave of opposition.
Trump is stealing the election! Trump hands out now!
A march with a message for the president.
Get the hell out of the White House?
Get out of town. You're not welcome here.
He should stand down. He should watch his back because everybody's coming for him.
The resentment isn't new. A day after Donald Trump's inauguration in 2017, record numbers gathered across the U.S. to voice their anger. Today, they rallied once more. For them, 4 more years isn't an option.
Statement from Austrian Revolt on the occasion of March 8, International Women's Day. In Iran, after the People's Uprising in December 2017, and especially after the massive rebellion in November 2019, repression has become more widespread and more severe. Among those targeted by the Islamic regime are women activists, especially those who worked for women's rights. In large parts, those are the ones being arrested and are now many of the political prisoners. Based on the names, places, and prison sentences of those arrested, it can be seen that this repression covers all areas of political, cultural, and intellectual activities and different localities in Iran. It encompasses environmentalists to labor and women's rights activists, from oppressed nationalities to religious minorities, from the cities and regions of Tehran and Karaj to Kurdistan, Ahvaz, and Azerbaijan, and from the Fars to the minority people of the Kurds, the Arabs, the Baluchis, etc. This is not only the continuation of the permanent repression of the Islamic Republic, but also the beginning of a new round of repression. And in fact, it is a testimony to the battle between the regime and the people. The regime aims to restore its lost stability in their current fragile hold on Iranian society. In Afghanistan, women activists who fight for civil and political rights are assassinated or their character is attacked. These assassinations are carried out to pave the way for the return to power of the Taliban, which is planned by the United States and is being implemented by Afghan politicians. The Islamic Republic of Iran not only suppresses the people outside the prison or just by imprisoning them. Inside the prison, the repression continues and is even harsher based on the religious fundamentalist ideology and laws of the Islamic Republic. The hijab is mandatory for every woman on the street, and this compulsory covering of women by the regime's morality police is even imposed on the posting of virtual images and photos online. It becomes more concentrated in prison, where every female prisoner must wear a chador. The use of physical obscenities, the sexual harassment of female prisoners, the pressure on detainees to undergo virginity tests, these are all specific forms of oppression of women that are widely enforced and are all particular aspects of the Islamic Republic's misogynistic ideology. The regime also maintains its anti-women ideological basis by exerting maximum repression on militant, radical, or revolutionary women. As the inability of the Islamic Republic to solve the problems of the society increases, so does its repression and its misogynistic, theocratic, oppressive framework widen. On March 8, we call on all progressive movements, both in Iran and around the world, who are fighting against patriarchy, racism and fascism, religious fundamentalism, environmental destruction, poverty, national oppression, political repression, and imperialist wars, to unite with all those who are standing up in Iran. We call on everyone who is opposed to any form of oppression under the capitalist system to unite around the demand for freedom for all Iran's political prisoners. Today's political prisoners are freedom fighters of our society. If we do not stand and unite against the repression of the Islamic Republic, we will have fewer freedom fighters every day, which means that oppression, ignorance, and repression will prevail over societies. At the same time, women's liberation and putting a stop to the repression of women, which is a global issue, can and should be a unifying factor in linking women's movements around the world. Those of us who have more ability and possibility should raise our voices as loud as we can to unite on March 8th against patriarchal, repressive, and oppressive governments. The liberation of women also makes possible the struggle to free all humanity. Free all political prisoners in Iran now. Stop the suppression and segregation of women. For women's freedom and for the freedom of all humanity. A statement by Ocean Revolt for March 8, International Women's Day 2021.
Wow. Seeing face after face after face of these heroic freedom fighters, it's really powerful. You know, these are some of the most precious people that humanity has, and we really cannot allow what is going down in Iran, this wave of repression, to steal from humanity, their very best fighters. That was a statement from Ocean Revolt, the voice of women's rebellion to express the determination and to serve their struggle against the Islamic Republic in Iran and the region. These are our people here and all over the world that are suffering terribly. And it's up to us to stand with them and to build the women's liberation movement as a part of emancipating all of humanity. We need to defend these political prisoners. And if you go to the website revcom.us, you can find that statement from Ocean. You can find out how you can be a part of this campaign and you can raise this demand. There's a line from this statement I think is just so important. It goes something like, women's liberation and putting a stop to the oppression of women is a global issue and can and should be a unifying factor in linking women's movements around the world, because these chains, you know, they really are global chains on half of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think you see in that series of videos, but also the statement from Ocean and those images, the potential seeds of bringing the system down, the volatility that we've been talking about of this question, the potential, and I do want to thank Outer National for that video, but for Free Women, messengers of a whole new world. But I also think, again, I don't want to repeat ourselves too much, but the responsibility we have to link this fight up with a way to actually get free, so that people aren't just, the rebellion is beautiful and it is volatile, but this actually has to go somewhere. And that means getting linked up to this leadership. It means getting linked up to a scientific understanding of what's the source of the problem that people are responding to. And I do want to encourage people to get into that New Year's statement and to join with us in spreading it so that we can actually have this fight go somewhere to break all the chains for real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to say one thing before we go to our next clip, and sort of as a introduction to that and a segue into that. When you start learning about the oppression of women, when you start really and squarely confronting and peeling back the layers of how exactly this came to be, why are things the way they are, one of the things you start to realize is just how ingrained in our society, how deeply interwoven the oppression of women is. It's in every aspect of our culture. Everything you see on TV, billboard ads, music, you can't help but turn on the radio and just hear just the crudest misogyny against women. It's all woven into how we're trained to think. How we think of ourselves as, men and women. We hear boys will be boys, girls will be girls. Everything we're taught in terms of what is supposed to be a meaningful life and what we're supposed to do with our lives, all up and down. We're confined. And humanity is suffocated by this oppression of women. And so, look, this next clip we're going to play from Bob Avakian. It's going to be the center of our program today. And it is so important. It just totally rips into, how young girls, but also how the boys, are just shaped, how they're misshaped with all this guy culture. And this guy culture, this oppressive, misogynistic culture, this is deadly. This is deadly for so many women. And so now more than ever, we need a radical revolt against this revolting culture. So it's a substantive 18-minute clip. It's the heart of our program. And it's a clip from the talk from Bob Avakian called BA Speaks, Revolution, Nothing Less. So let's go to that now.
Let's put it this way: resisting this system's brainwash and developing a radical revolt against its revolting culture, that is a great need. You know, Marx, in talking about capitalism, spoke to the phenomenon of what he called commodity fetishism. Now, he didn't mean dirty old men doing perverse things with commodities. What he meant was that almost a religious significance is attached to the relation between things produced in exchange as commodities, and the relations among people that underlie this are hidden and obscured. For example, you go to the store to buy something, once again our infamous iPhones, let's say. You take that one universal commodity that's good for exchanging with everything, money, and you give it to the store owner, who will then, if you give him the proper amount, give you the commodity, the iPhone. Once again, what you don't see in that is the relations among people involved. You don't see the blood and the bones in the money that you're handing over. You don't see the suffering of little children and women and others in the iPhone that you're buying. But that is what is actually being exchanged underneath this exchange of commodities. All that is hidden, particularly in a parasitic society like this that feeds and feasts off so much of the rest of the world. But it's even gotten to the point where even people in this society are openly reduced to commodities. I mentioned this earlier. Develop your brand. You hear these celebrities, I'm working on my brand, you know. I'm trying to increase the value of my brand. This is openly treating a person like a commodity. And this is being popularized in the culture. But on the other side, at the same time, we find commodities being treated like people, as if they are actually conscious beings. Think about it. How many times have we heard things like this? The market doesn't like this. Or the market is very happy about that. Give me a break. The market is not a person. It is a social relation, a relation of exploitation, a relation where many are exploited by a relative few. Think back to the slave market that I referred to earlier. There is a market, it's openly trading in human beings. Sexual slavery and even pornography are openly trading in human flesh. Human beings are being bought and sold and exploited over and over by those who buy them. But at the same time, and on an even bigger scale, under this system, huge numbers of people who are not literally slaves are still being brutally exploited in crushing conditions of poverty all over the world. And this is what is being speculated on in the market. What are people speculating on in the market? They're betting on how profitable or not this or that company will be relative to another one, or this or that commodity. And where does the profit come from? The more intense exploitation of real human beings. In effect and in reality, what the market involves is speculating on misery. In keeping with the nature and needs of this system, there is, along with all this, the deliberate promotion of mindless, self-seeking individualism and mind-numbing pursuits. There is the spreading of notions of ownership and empowerment within a system that is not only marked by deep inequalities, but which literally grinds up masses of human beings in its machinery of exploitation, backing all this up with mass slaughter and destruction. There is for some the building of penthouses and mansions, or in any case pursuing a life of privilege and luxury, literally on a foundation of human bones, of people weighed down and driven down, battered, broken, and blown apart all over the world. There is the continual promotion of pursuing dreams of personal fulfillment and chasing endless gratification while remaining ignorant of and oblivious to the suffering on which all this rests, a continent or perhaps just a mile away. I think of the ad I saw a few years ago, this guy sitting in his recliner drinking his beer. On comes the ad from one of these big box appliance companies telling him that he needs this and he needs that, and the one he has now is old and he needs to get a new one and so forth. And it goes on, and finally the crowning climax of this ad is the guy manages to get his fat ass a little bit farther up in the chair, and he cries out, "I want it all, and I want it now." And this is sort of a perfect metaphor for the kind of culture that's promoted in this system. And we can't ignore the way this even gets parroted among the oppressed themselves. I saw that Public Enemy is coming out with a new CD that they're bypassing the whole industry and going directly onto the internet. And hopefully this will be something good we'll need to see. But probably one of the main reasons they're bypassing the industry is what gets promoted in the industry, what gets supported and promoted. In hip-hop, for example, misogyny, crude demeaning and degrading of women, openly promoting the idea of getting yours on the back or through the blood of other people. Get rich or die trying, I gotta get mine no matter what I gotta do. And often all wrapped up with religious obscurantism and crosses and references to nonsense in a poisonous package. And what do we hear? What's the excuse when people are confronted with this? Oh, I'm just keeping it real. I'm just telling it the way it really is down here. Keeping it real, my ass. You are helping to keep it going the way it is. And then there's Beyonce Knowles, or as I think she should be called, Beyonce Don't Knowles Shit. You know, after Osama bin Laden was killed, she picked up this song from this old country clown, Lee Greenwood, God Bless the USA. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And she put out her version of this song on the heels of the assassination of Osama bin Laden. Come on. What we see here is these bourgeois strata seeking their interests in a way tied in with the horrors of this system, and fuck the masses of people suffering terrible oppression under this system. Instead of this, all this garbage, we need more fight the power. Instead of the promotion of getting in on the oppression, we need the promotion of fighting to put an end to it. Think about what's going on in the popular culture, particularly in hip-hop, the promotion of pimping, the brutal treatment of women, tricked and forced into this and maintained it through the most disgusting violence, even turning it into adjectives, pimpalicious and all the rest. Think about it, the effect this has on the youth coming up and on the culture and the people broadly. Because a big part of all this is what we could call guy culture. It's a culture of degrading domination of women and of wanton violence, a kind of pornography of violence, with an American chauvinist and male chauvinist thrust to it. Think about some of these video games where the point is you go out and you kill America's enemies. That's the point of the video game as identified by the army and the ruling class as a whole. Or the video games where a lot of youth are trained and conditioned to think while they're playing the game. They think they're just going like using their thumbs and fingers. They're using their brains, though. Their brains are being influenced. You have video games not only go out and kill America's enemies, you have video games where the high point is you get to hunt down and kill a woman who's portrayed as a whore. How does this condition young people, boys in particular, to think about women and the relations between genders? Think about one of the main institutions and sites of male bonding in this society, along with pornography, the strip club. That's where you go to hang out with and bond with other young guys or other older guys, participating in and being titillated by the degradation of women forced to do this. What kind of thinking and conditioning is going on here in terms of how people who are being socialized in this way are being influenced to think about women and whether they're human beings and about the relations and what sex should be about? Look, let's face it. Sex, if it's done right, among people who really care about each other and on the basis of equality and what they want, let's face it, it's one of the greatest pleasures human beings can have, okay? But not when it's done by one part degrading the other part. And this is what people are being socialized to think of as the norm and as the object, the goal. And then we have the phrase, man up. Think about this. What is the logic of this phrase? What is the meaning of man up? It means you stand up and be strong and don't be a coward and don't back down from your responsibilities or from danger. And these are presented as attributes, qualities of men. Now, by logic, who does not have these qualities? Who are these qualities not of? Obviously, women. Think if you went out there and said, look, quit being so weak, woman up. It wouldn't make any sense in the dominant culture. It could make a lot of sense in reality, but it wouldn't make any sense in the dominant culture. Once again, people are being conditioned that to stand up for principle, to stand up for right, to not be afraid or shrink in the face of danger or sacrifice or taking responsibility are qualities of men that men should exercise. And it becomes so perverse that not only do you hear women being influenced to use this phrase, but you see it being promoted in the culture that if a woman wants to have these qualities, then somehow she has to try to man up. I think of the movie G.I. Jane with Demi Moore. This is a movie portraying the great advance for the cause of liberation of women as a woman who can make it in the tough confines and environs of the U.S. military. Become part of the machinery of oppressing and slaughtering human beings all over the world. And the storyline of this movie is Demi Moore plays this woman who has to fight through every attempt of her drill instructor in the basic training and the rest to drive her out of the military. And one after another she passes these tests and she finds it hard and she needs to get support and advice, but she perseveres. And finally it comes down to the crowning scene, so to speak, where once again the drill instructor is being extra hard on her, partly it seems to drive her out, but maybe to make her actually rise up to the challenge. And in this scene, he's just driving her and driving her and driving her, test after test, and he keeps saying to her, you want to quit? You want to quit? You want to quit? And finally she turns and says, no, fuck you, suck my dick. Which, of course, she does not have. But what is the point? The point is that in order to be really tough and worthy, you have to man up even if you're a woman. Or what about the phrase that's out there so much too? Being made into somebody's bitch. That's the lowliest thing you could be. A woman, and in particular a woman who's portrayed as being somewhat hysterical and frenzied, like a dog in heat. Being made into somebody's bitch, that's the lowest thing. And you see it even translated into all kinds of ways. For example, you go out on the basketball court. Somebody takes a shot. It doesn't go right in. It bounces on the rim. It's rolling around. And they'll say, "Get in there, bitch." Now think about it. Why are they saying, "Get in there, bitch"? Because the basketball is acting like a recalcitrant woman. It's not doing what it's supposed to do according to the dictates of this man. It's supposed to get in the basket. And it's rolling around instead and it might fall out. Get in there, bitch. How is that conditioning people to think even without their being fully conscious of it? Imagine if some white guy went out on the court, started playing basketball, took a shot and was rolling around the rim. He said, "Get in there, nigger." Well, this is the same thing. And once again, you can get away with this in this culture now. It's acceptable. It's conditioning people. And along with this, the women under this system are conditioned, even girls from an early age, to internalize and to go along with so much of this, or to accept that this is the way things are and that nothing better can be expected from men. So try to own it, market yourself, and get the most you can out of this while remaining in what is in fact an oppressed and degraded position. Now all this is not hardwired in people. It's not hardwired in guys any more than in the young women. It's ways that guys are conditioned by the dominant institutions and media and culture to think and act, reflecting the basic oppressive relations of this system and serving the interests of its ruling class. So developing a radical revolt against this revolting culture in many different forms and on many different levels is a very important part of and can make a very important contribution to fighting the power and transforming the people for revolution. Even if much of this culture that becomes part of this radical revolt is not all the way revolutionary and doesn't completely express the communist point of view, it can still make a big contribution by raising disgust at the putrid culture that dominates, by inspiring and provoking people to think differently and think critically, to question what they would otherwise accept, to ponder why the world is the way it is, to dream about and argue about the possibility of a radically different world, to come alive with righteous outrage and the joy of calling out and rebelling against what should not be tolerated. And this contribution will be all the greater if people who do have a communist understanding bring forward a vibrant culture that expresses that and inspires people toward that, while relating in a good way to the many and diverse expressions of a culture of radical revolt against this truly revolting culture.
If you've had it with everything you just heard that BA critiques that he rips into, then join the revolution. Let's get rid of this nightmare we're forced to live under this system and bring about a whole, really like a whole different way to live, whole different ways of relating to each other. We're moving to the last, I think, 10 minutes of our online celebration here today. But before we go into the next videos, we want to talk about just very briefly one other way that you can step into and be part of this revolution, which is to donate, to make a financial contribution. Donate so this can have an impact against all the ways of thinking and being in the world that just keep this nightmare going. Donate so that this New Year's statement by Bob Avakian can actually reach broadly in society, so that it can reach all those who need to know that there is this revolutionary way out. Donate so that we can reach all the people who are straining against this oppression, but don't know that there's a way to end it. Donate so that we can build up this revolution that we need to sweep this system off the face of the earth, to build that society, that much better society and world. Make a financial contribution. Anything you can give, $5, $50, $5,000, it makes a difference. People can donate their stimulus check. You're going to get a new one soon. If you can give and give generously. It's going to take all of us in the fight to get free. So next up, we're going to play 2 videos back to back. We're going to play a video from Maggie Brown. She's a singer from Chicago. She is the daughter of the poet Oscar Brown Jr., and she's a good friend of the revolution. So she sent a video of herself doing a cover of India Ari's song, Worthy. And then we're going to go from there to a video of, from the singer Shakib Mossadegh. And Shakib is from Afghanistan. He's currently in exile. And he sent this really, the comrades from Ocean sent this beautiful video compilation with his song in the background. So we're going to play those 2 videos.
La, 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 la. Know exactly what you're thinking. Had those thoughts a million times. I can see the question that's behind your eyes. Oh, you're searching for your peace of mind. Listen up to this truth. You are me and I am you. Every one of us is worthy. Baby, girl, worthy woman. Every one of us is worthy. I know your life, I felt your pain. I know your joys and your shame. Sometimes it seems like life walks over you, oh, like you're a penny on the ground. But either on the ground or in your purse, every seed still has its worth. Every one of us is worthy. Baby, girl, worthy woman, every one of us is worthy. Baby, girl, worthy woman, every one of us is worthy. Worthy of love, worthy of life, worthy of saying no when something don't feel right. This is a song for you, for all of the ups and downs that life will put you through. Oh, so listen up to this truth. You are me and I am you. Every one of us is worthy. Baby, girl, worthy woman. Every one of us is worthy. Baby, girl, worthy woman. Every one of us is worthy. Baby, girl, worthy woman, every one of us is worthy. Every one of us is worthy. Every one of us is worthy. Thank you, India Ari, for this wonderful song. Peace and love, my sisters. You are me and I am you.
بخوان بخوان بلند بلند برابری قیام شد چه خشم سراسری بهشت زیر پای خود را پس بده نفس بگیر هر روز میکشن تو را که خواهری که مادری نه فقط زنی بلند صدا به جنگ نه نیمه و نه ناقصی برابری تو بیشتری از سنگهایی که به سوی تو زدن کوهی بساز برو به اوج قله یک کوه بجنگ در خیابان آتش زدند و گفتن مقدسی در بیابان سنگ زدن تا که به عشقت نرسی در خانه گوش و لب بریدند و دقل باب نزدی در تخت تحقیر شدی سنگ به این خواب نزدی اول برونه از سکوت مالک جسم خیش شو سپس رها روح از این بند شو به پیش شو بیا کنار هم برای هم برابری شویم باعث و بانی عدالت سراسری شویم اگرچه خیلی سخت است محال نیست اگر شود وقتی که نیستیم من و تو شاید جهان بهتر شود 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 شاید جهان بهتر شود
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Shakib. Those are beautiful videos. And, there's a line in Shakib's song, we're going to take those stones that you throw at us and build a mountain. So that's our charge, people. Before we go, we want to announce and invite people to be part of the RevComs tomorrow for International Women's Day are throwing a gender reveal party like no other. If you are anywhere near Los Angeles, come join us. It's going to be at 2 p.m. at Hollywood and Highland. Is it going to be a boy? Is it going to be a girl? What will be revealed when the pink or the blue smoke clears? So join us to find out. Come be in the streets, 2 p.m., Hollywood and Highland. Or if you can't make it to LA, then tune in on social media and spread the word between now and then to join the gender reveal like no other. People can find out more by tuning in.
So we're approaching the end of our program, but before we go, we wanted to see about putting the donate card back on the screen. A whole better world really is possible, and it is up to us to bring this into being. So look, donate to this revolution, donate so that we can actually have an impact with this in the world. We need to go out and find all those people who are so sick in their heart of living like this. So many people who don't even question the way things are, that don't even know that another world is possible and so are confined and just learn to live within this. And you donating makes a significant difference to our ability collectively to go out and reach them. So with that, I want to say, subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. And again, read this New Year's statement from Bob Avakian. It's at the very top of our website, revcom.us. And the other place I want you to go, I want you to go to that website, and I want you to scroll down, and on the right side of your screen, you're going to see something called Zoom into the Revolution seminars. It's really important to get into this work, and it's all the more important to get into it with other like-minded people, to dig into it, to find out what it means to apply science to understanding and changing the world. So again, we need a revolution. Nothing less is going to solve this. We actually have the leadership to make that revolution in Bob Avakian. And it was so exciting and so uplifting to be able to share this day with all of you.
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to Maggie Brown, to Outer National. Thank you to Shakib Mossadegh. Thank you to the comrades from Ocean for sending those videos. Let's go fight for the future, y'all.